Welcome to G Fun Facts Online. Have you ever looked at a new law and thought, I could have done a better job, or felt frustrated by political gridlock, wishing you could just bypass the politicians and vote on an issue directly? Well, in many parts of the world, and particularly in many US states, that's not just a fantasy, it's a reality, and it's called direct democracy. Today, we're diving into how citizens are increasingly taking the law into their own hands, using a powerful tool known as the ballot measure. This isn't just a quaint historical idea, it's a modern renaissance in civic engagement that's shaping everything from our taxes to our most fundamental rights. So what exactly is direct democracy? In its purest form, which dates back to ancient Athens, it's a system where every citizen votes directly on every law. No representatives, no middlemen. Just the collective voice of the people making decisions. Of course, for a large modern nation, that's completely impractical. Can you imagine voting on every single line item of the federal budget? That's why most places use a hybrid model called semi-direct democracy. This system combines our usual representative government, where we elect officials for day-to-day governance, with powerful tools that allow citizens to step in and vote directly on the big stuff. And the primary engine driving this process is the ballot measure. A ballot measure, sometimes called a proposition, is simply a law, issue, or question that is placed on a ballot for voters to approve or reject directly. It allows ordinary citizens to become lawmakers. This idea isn't new to the United States. Its modern form was born during the progressive era of the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Reformers were fed up with the power of political parties and corrupt bosses who controlled the legislative process. They wanted a way to curb that power. South Dakota became the first state to adopt the citizen-led initiative and referendum process in 1898, with Utah and Oregon following shortly after. Since then, its use has exploded. There have been over 900 statewide ballot measures in the U.S. since 1980. With thousands more at the city and county level. Today, 38 states permit some form of direct democracy, and 24 of those, plus Washington, D.C., allow citizens to put their own measures on the ballot. So how does this actually work? There are a few key types of ballot measures. First, you have the initiative. This is where citizens propose a brand new law, or even a constitutional amendment themselves. They have to gather a required number of signatures from registered voters on a petition. If they get enough signatures, the proposal goes on the ballot for everyone to vote on. Sometimes it's a direct initiative, going straight to the ballot. Other times it's indirect, where it's first submitted to the legislature, which can pass it or let it go to the voters. Think of the initiative as, we the people propose a law. Next is the referendum. This tool allows citizens to challenge a law that has already been passed by the legislature. If enough people sign a petition, the law is put on hold and placed on the next ballot for voters to either approve it or repeal it. This is often called a veto referendum because it gives citizens the power to veto their own government. Think of this as, we the people want to reject this law. Finally, there are legislative referrals. This is when the legislature itself decides to place a proposed law or constitutional amendment on the ballot for voter approval. They're essentially saying, this is a big one. We want the people to have the final say. This is the most common form, used in 49 states for things like changing the state constitution. The growing popularity of these tools makes sense. Direct democracy has some major upsides. One of the biggest is increased transparency and accountability. It forces important policy debates out from behind closed doors and into the public square. It also keeps elected officials on their toes. The mere threat of a citizen initiative can pressure politicians to be more responsive to what the public actually wants. It also boosts citizen engagement. When people know their vote has a direct and tangible impact on policy, they are more likely to get involved, learn about the issues, and feel a stronger connection to their community. And in an era of intense political polarization, ballot measures can be a powerful way to overcome legislative gridlock. When partisan bickering brings government to a halt, a ballot measure allows citizens to unbundle complex issues and make a decision, moving forward on critical topics that politicians can't or won't solve. But, like any powerful tool, direct democracy is a double-edged sword, and it has significant potential pitfalls. A major concern is the influence of money. While the goal is to empower ordinary citizens, ballot measure campaigns can be incredibly expensive. They are often bankrolled by wealthy individuals, corporations, and special interest groups who can afford to spend millions on advertising and signature gathering. This can hijack the process, turning it from a tool of the people into a weapon for narrow agendas. To put this in perspective, from 2000 to 2020 in California, total spending on ballot measure campaigns reached a mind-boggling $4.2 billion. That's billion with a B. Another challenge is ensuring voters are well-informed. These are often complex policy issues, and voters, who have busy lives, might not have the time or resources to research the nuances of a proposition. The outcome can be decided by catchy slogans and misleading TV ads rather than careful consideration. Then there's the famous concern about the tyranny of the majority, where a majority of voters could pass a law that infringes on the rights of a minority group. This is a legitimate fear and underscores the need for strong constitutional protections that ballot measures cannot override. Critics also point out that laws written by activists or special interests can be poorly drafted, leading to unintended consequences that career legislators, with their staff and expert committees, might have avoided. Now, let's bring this into the 21st century. The rise of the internet and social media is completely changing the game. On one hand, technology offers amazing opportunities. Online platforms make it easier than ever for people to get engaged. Digital petitions can make signature gathering more accessible. Social media has become an incredibly potent tool for grassroots campaigns to organize and reach huge audiences with very little money. But the digital age also introduces new dangers. The same platforms that facilitate mobilization are also breeding grounds for disinformation. False or misleading information can spread like wildfire, manipulating public opinion and making it even harder for voters to make informed decisions. We also have to consider the digital divide. If political participation moves online, what happens to those without reliable internet access or the digital skills to navigate these platforms? And then there's the immense power of big tech companies themselves, whose algorithms can shape what information we see, influencing our perceptions and, ultimately, our political choices. To really understand the power of this process, let's look at some landmark ballot measures that have had a massive impact. In 1978, California voters passed Proposition 13, a measure that drastically capped property taxes. This didn't just affect California. It sparked a nationwide taxpayer revolt, leading to similar measures in many other states. In the 1990s, a wave of ballot measures imposing term limits on state lawmakers swept through states like California, Colorado, and Oklahoma, fundamentally changing their political landscapes. But where ballot measures have truly been at the forefront is on divisive social issues. Take marijuana legalization. The entire movement began with ballot measures. While an early attempt in California failed in 1972, the constant pressure from citizen initiatives kept the issue alive. The major turning point came in 2012, when voters in Colorado and Washington passed measures to legalize recreational marijuana, creating a domino effect across the country. The issue of same-sex marriage also played out on the ballot. Between 1998 and 2012, voters in 30 states actually approved measures that banned it. But the tide has turned. In 2024, California voters will have the chance to repeal the very ban they approved back in 2008, showing how ballot measures can reflect evolving public opinion. And perhaps no issue is more prominent today than abortion rights. 3 years before the landmark Roe v. Wade decision, in 1970, voters in Washington state legalized abortion through a referendum. Following the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, the ballot measure has become the primary battleground for reproductive rights. In 2024, for example, Missouri voters approved a constitutional amendment to protect abortion access. Because this tool is so powerful, it's no surprise that some in power are trying to limit it. In recent years, we've seen a concerted effort in some states to make the initiative process harder. For instance, in August 2023, the Ohio legislature tried to raise the threshold for passing a constitutional amendment from a simple majority to a 60% supermajority. This was widely seen as an attempt to block an upcoming abortion rights measure. The move was soundly rejected by Ohio voters. In Utah, after the state's Supreme Court upheld a citizen-led initiative, the legislature put a measure on the ballot to give themselves the power to amend or repeal any future initiatives passed by the people. These actions represent a larger struggle over the balance of power between representative government and direct citizen participation. Proponents argue that in an age of hyper-partisanship and gerrymandering, where legislative districts are drawn to guarantee one party's victory, ballot measures are often the last line of defense for ensuring the will of the majority is actually heard. So, in the end, the modern resurgence of direct democracy is a powerful reflection of an enduring human desire, the desire to have a direct say in our own governance. While it's not a perfect system or a cure-all for the problems facing our democracies, it provides a vital mechanism for citizen empowerment, for policy innovation, and for holding the powerful to account. As technology continues to evolve and our political landscapes continue to shift, the role of direct democracy is only likely to grow. The power of the ballot measure is, ultimately, the power of the people to shape their own destiny. Thanks for tuning in to G Fun Facts Online.